Great to see everyone here. Who here is a builder? All right. Who here is excited about AI? All right. Who's not? So, I think maybe as just a little background, I've been working in the space of AI for 15 years, whether it was at an ad tech startup, QuantCast, that was a pioneer, or starting my own company and selling it to a big database company, Teradata, or in the CTO office in Google Cloud working on AI, or before this, the Vector Institute. So I've been a long time in the AI space, and we started ChainML 2 years ago because we thought that Web3 had a ton of synergy with AI, and building a more open community that's open source based, that really empowers everyone, is a big opportunity. I'll talk to you a little bit about that and why we think, especially around AI agents, it's incredibly important and urgent. So you probably know that AI is advancing at a rapid pace. That's a quote from the real Bill Gates, but that's a mid-journey version of him. No surprise. I don't have access to Sora, maybe I should use I forget if it was Alibaba that did the singing Sora. they took a still frame from Sora and made it sing. But I think a couple of things, right? One is AI is becoming pervasive. Obviously, many people are now using chatbots for productivity, notably ChatGPT. And a big wave that started last year and is only accelerating is integrating AI into applications, right? Making it so you have useful functionality, AI that can help users improve usability, get things done, right? So that's a big trend. At the same time, no secret, right? AI is very much being controlled by centralized players who are building walled gardens, and we think it's a really important need to have community ownership. Broadly speaking, we think AI agents are an incredibly important point. So people talk a lot about the models, but a big thing that's happened is these general purpose models, often called LLMs, although it's a bit of a misnomer because they're increasingly good at more and more things, right? They're good at video and text and images and audio and beyond, right? So these general purpose AI models can do a wide variety of tasks. And so that's great, but increasingly it's like, how can you take that capability and make it useful for doing something of economic value, right? And that to us is what an agent is. Given a task, it can relatively independently understand the goals, break it down, and complete it for you, right? Now, what an agent's going to be will vary over time. If you've read Vitalik's point of view around AI and crypto, the first area where we see this happening is helping people in the game, assisting users, right? Building it into dApps and into infrastructure. Later on, being a player in the game, a more autonomous thing that runs long-lived on-chain with access to resources is exciting. We think they're both relevant, and actually they're both kinds of agents. It's just the sophistication of agents is going to continue to rise and be more and more impactful. These agents can use the reasoning capabilities that are built in to LLMs with the right kind of prompting. And of course, just like last year and this year has been a huge trend of giving more memory, context windows to LLMs, better planning ability and reasoning is a big focus of all the major efforts in building models. So we think that AI agents are going to radically remake work and transform the way people operate. There's a study last year that said even with GPT-4 level capabilities that half the jobs in the economy could double their productivity. And the models are only getting better. But to unlock that, you need a lot more than just the base model. You need an agent. So if you think about it, this is a way of thinking of some of the key capabilities, right? You've got a user asks the agent to do something, and the agent has a whole bunch of things at its disposal. It can integrate with documents. You've probably heard of RAG. It can also integrate with databases. You don't integrate with a database by dumping the contents of the database into a prompt. You do it by generating code. And in fact, there's different kinds of code you want to generate. One is a database query, and then another is code that can let you process that data and analyze it and make sense of it, right? So you have this idea of using repeated calls to these models, and could be different models and optimized for different things, but to access data, to plan, to iterate, to analyze the data with code, to use specialized models within that, and ultimately to produce a task output, right? So that's a general picture. of using tools, of using data, coming together and solving tasks. Now, you may have heard there's some efforts to build fully general purpose agent frameworks. Tell it to do anything and it will do it. However, that's an extremely hard problem to get right. Right? We think there's a magic middle here of agents that do a variety of similar tasks well, and that there's a lot of need in the market for those, and that's where the action's going to be in the next few years. Not, general purpose agents that will do everything, which is going to extremely hard to get right. At the same time, we're seeing increasing centralization, right? It seems like longer ago, and I'm sure it feels like it's been forever for Google, but the fiasco over their heavy-handed point of view, the way they've trained Gemini and the way they've force prompted it has created obviously a big backlash, whether it be creating absurd images of founding fathers or refusing certain biased perspectives. It won't answer questions in text, whether it be for one political reason or another. This kind of centralized control over what the AI will do is disturbing, right? In the same way, probably equally disturbing was last week, OpenAI recklessly rolled out a release of their API, their chatbot, that started speaking gibberish, right? Started saying random things. And so, that their flagship model that's being used by millions of people every day just suddenly broke with such poor QA that they just released that is also not a great sign. It's certainly not a great reason to want to have, a single or a small cabal of companies controlling the AI we're using. So, we don't want that power in the hands of a few companies. There's obviously security and privacy concerns over what they're doing with data. And like most Web 2 monopolists, they're in the attract phase right now of trying to make it easy to work with them. But, phase 2 becomes extract and starting to put up tolls and limitations and start to suck the value out of the ecosystem. Already we're seeing unequal access to AI and censorship risk from them. So we think it's critical to have a community response. Now, one thing that's really heartening to me is, just seeing the vibrancy of the AI and Web3 ecosystem, right? There's so many layers where people are working, whether it's at the data layer, like the talk Andre just had at Grass, or, at the DPIN layer to provide open access to GPUs in different environments, or whether it be at the inference layer where you've got, a range of options, whether it's ZKML options, whether it be OPML, pessimistic inference, right? And in fact, open models, even if they're not fully open source, there's at least enough innovation there that, the open community is in the game, right? So you may question why Facebook or Dubai, in the case of Falcon, or Mistral are producing quality open models, but there is, at least decent starting point open models, and then the community has been innovating very quickly around them. So the good news is there are at least some good options there, but I think, especially at the agent layer, it's critical. But across the board, like getting those pieces together so it's community driven. So builders in Web3 can really improve their user experience and drive adoption is a big opportunity, right? It's no secret that using Web3 involves, working with wallets, working with passphrases, signing things irrevocably. Those are challenging from a UX standpoint, and having a conversational interface can simplify and explain and bring users along to get them more comfortable. So we think that's a big opportunity. We think it's much better to have an ecosystem where there's incentives for builders to create great AI, and they have a stake in the protocol, and then there's open source backing it rather than something proprietary. And on the other side, builders who are consuming AI to have a seat at the table and a stake in it. So, inclusive decision making in the community. Obviously, one of the great things about Web3 is to have censorship resistance. Letting many people try many approaches, different ways of building agents, not a walled garden of only use one model and be subject to censorship. I think it gives a lot more resources to people, and you can have securing data. At the same time, it's important that in building an open ecosystem, we still take safety and responsibility seriously, right? So governance is important. It doesn't mean like, let any bad actor do anything they want with AI, but instead it means like, what are the minimum standards and how do we as a community enforce them and allow people to voluntarily work with others, right? Like, you should be allowed, if you're making an agent, to say, I don't want that to run in a pornographic application. That's not part of my values. I want to be able to not have it used there, and vice versa, to say, hey, in our application, these are the agents that we're going to allow to operate. So I think that's important. But to have composability and interoperability is a big deal. And I think open source has proven that it's better at innovating, and the incentive layer that Web3 provides, that you can really speed up adoption, is a big opportunity as well. So we think that we'll go from having great assistance inside of apps and infrastructure to on-chain agents that are long-lived and that allow for governance and supporting long-lived processes on-chain. So we think that's where the community can go and should go. We're working on a native AI agent web protocol for Web3 that will have an app chain to allow composability and portability of agents with incentives for people to build to drive adoption. And we think it's going to really allow magical simplification of the user experience for Web3. As an example of that, we've been powering Space and Time's Houston chatbot for the last year with agents that let you do data analytics, code generation, support questions, and general discussion with knowledge of Web3, all integrated into a chatbot that easily routes among those different agents. We think those are useful, and many projects will find that valuable, but we also think we're not the only people who can build good agents. We want to empower the community to have more and more great agents to allow apps to succeed with that. We think it's important to have end-to-end economics with micropayments. Now, I think that's a really good open question. How will people pay for the use of AI? Like, near term, a lot of us are subsidizing our users and like, use it for free and let's get adoption, and that's great. But over time, you may have noticed if you're using Web 2 apps that they're all trying to upsell you on $20 per month for adding AI to their app. And that starts to be a difficult value proposition if every app you use wants to charge you another $20 per month to use AI. So we think it's going to be important to have the crypto rails for settlement, that you can have innovative models where maybe users do pay for a certain amount of use. Maybe they pre-buy, prepaid amount of AI usage can be used anywhere, or they buy a bundle and have a subscription and get AI everywhere with agents, and the agent builders can divide up the revenue from that. Or maybe it's just a subscription with the app and the premium payment. So crypto rails lets us solve a really big problem of how you actually have the right payment model, the right business model to charge users for AI. And of course, decentralization, letting agents live on chain and have access to resources on chain with smart contract integration as a co-processor, that's a big opportunity as well. So basically, this is our view of how things can be architected, right? To have an agent chain that accesses a network for off-chain compute, and then frameworks like our open source council that integrate in with models and resources like data and storage, powering great experiences in dApps and components. And then, just to conclude, as a team, we've got over 100 years collectively building and scaling AI products. So we think we have the right team to execute on this, and we'd love to talk to projects that share our vision about how AI agents can really transform Web3. So I don't know if we have any time for questions. No. All right. Thanks, everyone. Come see me after.